At 3:17 p.m. on October 4th, 1943, Gefreiter Lucas Brandt expected to die. Not in battle, not in an air raid, not from hunger. He expected to disappear because the truck he was in wasn't marked Red Cross. It wasn't marked POW. It wasn't marked transport. It was just a gray military cargo truck with no insignia, no windows, and no explanation. And every man inside it had heard the same rumor. This is where they send the ones who won't be exchanged. This is where prisoners vanish. This isn't a camp. It's a holding place before execution. 22 German soldiers sat in silence as the truck rolled through the American countryside. No one spoke. No one prayed. No one cried, because fear had already used up all their energy. Lucas Brandt was 21 years old, born in Bremen, son of a dock worker, former apprentice machinist, captured in Sicily 3 months earlier when his unit collapsed under Allied artillery. When the Americans processed him at the coastal holding camp, they weighed him at 119 pounds. He had dysentery, an infected shrapnel wound in his calf, and malaria symptoms from North Africa. But none of that scared him. What scared him was the transfer order. Unlisted relocation facility, inland, no camp name, no destination, no Red Cross processing code, just coordinates. The truck slowed. Brandt leaned forward and looked through a tear in the canvas. He expected barbed wire, searchlights, guard towers, concrete walls. Instead, he saw white wooden houses, a gas station, a grocery store, a school playground, children running, a woman pushing a baby carriage, a church with a white steeple, a sign, Altoona, population 7,312. The truck stopped at a red light. An American man in overalls crossed the street carrying a toolbox. He looked at the truck, saw the soldiers inside, saw the armed guards in the front, and kept walking. No anger, no hatred, no fear, just indifference. That scared Brandt more than barbed wire ever could. The truck turned off the paved road and onto a dirt road. 3 miles later, the town disappeared. Fields replaced houses, trees replaced stores, silence replaced traffic. Then the fence appeared, 8 feet high, chain link, no electricity, no concrete walls, no minefields. 4 wooden watchtowers, 2 guards in each tower. That was it. A wooden sign by the gate. Reynolds Holding Facility, U.S. Army. Not POW camp, not prison camp, not internment camp. Holding facility. Brandt felt his stomach drop. Holding for what? Execution? Transfer? Experiments? Interrogation? The gate opened. The truck rolled in. Inside the fence, neat wooden barracks, gravel paths, a mess hall, a medical building, a recreation hall. It looked like a farm compound, not a prison, not a camp, not a military base. It looked quiet, too quiet. The prisoners were unloaded. They stood in formation. An American officer approached, mid-40s, clean uniform, no weapon drawn. He spoke calmly through a translator. You are not being punished. You are not being interrogated. You are not being transferred for execution. You are prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention. No one moved. No one believed him. He continued, This facility will house German soldiers for the duration of the war. You will work. You will eat. You will sleep. You will not be harmed. Escape attempts will be punished. Compliance will be rewarded. Rewarded. That word made several men laugh quietly. Bitter laughter. No one rewards prisoners. They were processed. Names, ranks, serial numbers, medical exams. Their German uniforms were taken, replaced with blue American work clothes. White paint on the back. P.W. Brandt was issued. A blanket, a pillow, a towel, soap, a metal cup, a mess kit, real soap. Not powder, not sawdust, not ash blocks. Actual soap. He hadn't seen real soap in over a year. Barrack assignment, Barrack 12, bunk 6 wooden floors. Insulated walls, windows, coal stove, mattresses, real mattresses, not straw. Not boards, not dirt. Brandt sat down. The mattress compressed under his weight, then slowly rose back. He stared at it, pressed it again. It responded again. He laughed once, then stopped, because his brain didn't trust what his body was feeling. At 5:30 p.m., a bell rang. Mess hall. The men lined up. Metal trays, steam rising from behind the counter. American soldiers in aprons. Food trays. Brandt stepped forward. One soldier placed meatloaf on his tray. Another added potatoes. Another added green beans. Another added bread. Another added butter. Another added cake. Chocolate cake. Real cake. Brandt froze. The soldier looked at him and said calmly, "Move along." Brandt sat at a table. No one spoke. They just stared at the food. Then they ate. Silently. Aggressively. Like animals. Because hunger overrides dignity. Brandt finished his tray in under 10 minutes. His stomach cramped. His hands shook. His body wasn't used to full meals. Around him, men were vomiting quietly into trash bins. Overeating shock. Starvation, recovery shock. But no one complained. No one protested. No one resisted. Because fear had been replaced by confusion. That night, Brandt lay on his bunk, listening to breathing, coughing, rustling blankets. He stared at the ceiling. This wasn't a camp of punishment. This wasn't a camp of suffering. This wasn't a camp of brutality. And that terrified him more than cruelty would have, because he didn't understand it. Outside the fence, Altoona slept peacefully. Families ate dinner. Lights glowed in windows. Dogs barked. Cars passed. Inside the fence, German soldiers slept in clean beds. Fed. Washed. Alive. In a camp no one in Germany knew existed. And Lucas Brandt thought one single thought before falling asleep. If this isn't a prison, then what is it? At 6 a.m., a siren cut through the camp. Not an alarm, not a warning, not panic, just a clean, mechanical sound. Morning. Lucas Brandt opened his eyes and forgot where he was. Then he smelled coffee. Real coffee, not acorn powder, not burned grain, not boiled leaves. Coffee. And for a second his brain broke. Because prisoners don't wake up to coffee. Roll call in the yard. Cold morning air. Thin fog over the fields. Birds in the trees. No shouting. No dogs. No rifles aimed at heads. Just names. Numbers. Counting. Then breakfast. Scrambled eggs. Toast. Bacon. Coffee. No ration lines. No fighting. No theft. Men ate slowly now. Carefully. Their bodies learning trust again. At 7:30 a.m., they were assembled in front of the administration building. A different officer stepped forward. Colonel Howard Briggs. Logistics Command. Not infantry. Not intelligence. A logistics officer. That mattered. Brandt didn't know why yet. The translator spoke. "You are not here for punishment. You are here for labor deployment." This facility is not a standard POW camp. It is a distribution hub. Distribution hub, not detention, not imprisonment. Distribution. Briggs continued. The United States has a manpower shortage. Millions of American men are overseas. Farms are empty. Mills are understaffed. Rail yards are failing. Forests are unmanaged. Construction is stalled. Pause. You are the labor force. Silence. Then the words that changed everything. You will work 6 days a week. You will be paid. You will eat. You will sleep. You will receive medical care. You will not be abused. You will not be tortured. You will not be executed. You are more valuable alive than dead. More valuable alive than dead. That sentence hit harder than any threat. He finished. This camp does not exist for punishment. It exists for production. Work assignments were posted. Farm labor, forestry, lumber mills, rail yards, construction, crews, road repair, warehouse loading, agricultural processing. Brandt's assignment, forestry detail, Section C. At 9 a.m., trucks rolled out. Brandt's truck held 18 prisoners and 2 guards. They drove into the mountains west of Altoona. Forests, endless trees, logging camps. American civilian supervisors waited. No soldiers, no weapons, just men with clipboards and axes. The supervisor introduced himself. Name's Walter Pike, 60 years old, missing 2 fingers, veteran of World War I. He spoke slow, clear, direct. You cut, you stack, you load, you work steady, you get water, you get lunch, you don't run, you don't fight. We don't hurt you. That was the contract. They worked. Hard labor, tree cutting, branch clearing, stacking logs, loading trucks. But it wasn't punishment labor. No beatings, no screaming, no exhaustion drills. Just work. Productive work. Real work. The kind civilians do. At noon, lunch. Sandwiches, apples, water. Brandt sat on a log and ate. His hands shook from fatigue. But it was honest fatigue. Not starvation fatigue. Not disease fatigue. Not terror fatigue. Just physical labor. He looked at the guards. They were sitting on the truck bed, smoking, talking, relaxed. Not tense, not aggressive, not hunting for excuses to punish. Because they weren't guarding prisoners. They were supervising workers. That's when Brandt understood the truth. This wasn't a prison system. It was a labor economy. The camp wasn't designed to contain them. It was designed to deploy them. That night, Brandt asked an older prisoner named Otto Weiss, "Why here? Why not a normal camp?" Weiss had been a school teacher before the war, captured in Tunisia, fluent in English. He answered quietly, "Because normal camps cost money." Pause. "And this makes money." Weiss explained, the U.S. government had calculated something simple. Housing prisoners costs resources. Feeding prisoners costs resources. Guarding prisoners costs resources. But working prisoners generate resources. Food production, timber production, infrastructure production, industrial output. They weren't prisoners. They were labor units. Weiss said, "They didn't build a camp. They built a workforce system." Brandt lay on his bunk that night, understanding something terrifying and brilliant. The Americans hadn't built camps to break German soldiers. They had built camps to use them. Not with whips, Not with terror, not with brutality, but with structure, stability, food, routine, purpose. And that made escape pointless, because escape meant no food, no shelter, no work, no protection, no survival. Freedom outside the fence meant death. Safety inside meant life. And worse, some men were already starting to prefer it. 3 days later, the first trustee list went up. Special status. Work details outside the fence. Minimal supervision. Extra food. Extra pay. Town access. Privileges. Brandt read the board. Names were already appearing. Men who worked hard. Men who followed rules. Men who didn't resist. Men who adapted. And he realized the system wasn't enforced by violence. It was enforced by incentives, behavioral control, psychological compliance, voluntary obedience. That's when the most dangerous thought entered his mind. This camp doesn't feel like captivity. And the most terrifying realization, if I stay long enough, it won't feel like prison at all. The gate opened, and no one stopped Lucas Brandt. No rifle raised, no order shouted, no escort grabbing his arm. Just a guard holding a clipboard saying, "Forestry trustees, step forward." Brandt hesitated, then stepped. 2 weeks earlier, he had arrived in Altoona as a skeletal prisoner. Now he was walking out of the camp gate, alone, with a paper badge clipped to his shirt. Trustee status, work. Authorization, no chains, no cuffs, no armed escort, just a work permit. And a truck waiting outside the fence. 6 men climbed in, all German soldiers, all in blue work clothes, all silent. The truck drove into town, not through back roads, not through military zones, but straight through Altoona. Main Street, gas station, post office, grocery store, school. People watched the truck pass. They saw the PW on their backs. They saw their faces. And they did nothing. No shouting, no spitting, no throwing stones, just curiosity. The truck stopped at a sawmill. A civilian foreman waited. No soldiers, no weapons, no barbed wire. Just a man with a clipboard. He said, "You're stacking lumber." That was it. Brandt spent the day lifting planks, stacking boards, sweating, working beside American civilians. No separation fences, no barriers, no guards, just Germans and Americans working in the same yard. At lunch, they sat under a tree. Americans on one side, Germans on the other. No hostility, no conversation, just parallel eating, parallel existence. 2 enemy uniforms sharing shade. One American man looked at Brandt's boots and said, "Germany." Brandt nodded. The man nodded back. That was the entire conversation. By the end of the week, something changed. People stopped staring, stopped watching, stopped caring. The prisoners became normal, background, just workers, just men in blue clothes. Brandt realized something terrifying. Visibility was protection. The more normal they became, the safer they were. The camp system had done something brilliant. It removed the psychological barrier of enemy. Not through propaganda, not through speeches, not through ideology, but through routine, work, meals, schedules, rules, pay, rest, repetition. The brain adapts. The fear fades. The identity shifts. One afternoon, an old American woman brought lemonade to the sawmill. She handed cups to civilians, then hesitated, then handed cups to the Germans. No words, no expression, just human behavior. That night, Brandt wrote in his notebook, "We are no longer prisoners. We are no longer soldiers. We are labor. Back at camp, the canteen opened. Trustees could buy cigarettes, candy soap, beer, chocolate, writing paper, beer. Brant held the bottle in his hand. He hadn't held alcohol in 2 years. He didn't drink it. He just stared at it. Because it didn't make sense. Prisoners don't buy beer. Workers do. The next stage began. Education, English classes, night lessons, basic math, reading, writing, conversation training. An American teacher stood in front of 25 German soldiers and taught them grammar. Not interrogation, not indoctrination, not propaganda. Education. Weiss whispered to Brant, "They're not reforming us." Pause. "They're preparing us." Brant didn't understand yet, but he would. Weeks passed. Weight returned. Muscle formed. Posture changed. Eyes changed. Men who had arrived broken were now standing straight. Men who had arrived terrified were now calm. Men who had arrived enemies were now workers. One evening, a trustee didn't return on time. 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m., 7 p.m. Alarm protocol activated. Guards mobilized. Search trucks deployed. At 9:14 p.m., he returned. Walking. Hands raised. Not running. Not hiding. Not escaping. Just walking. He had gone to a diner. Had coffee. Forgot the time. Punishment. Loss of trustee status. 2 weeks of restricted movement. No beating. No isolation. No starvation. No torture. Just removal of privileges. The system didn't punish with pain. It punished with loss of comfort. Loss of routine. Loss of status. Loss of autonomy. And it worked. Better than fear ever could. Brant started dreaming in English. Not sentences, not conversations, just words, signs, sounds, street names. One day, he realized he hadn't thought about the war in weeks. Not Germany, not Hitler, not victory, not defeat. Just work schedules, paydays, class times, meals. That's when the final psychological shift happened, the most dangerous one. Brant stopped seeing himself as a prisoner of war. He started seeing himself as a displaced worker. And the camp didn't correct that thought, because that was the point. The invitation came on a Tuesday, not from an officer, not from a guard, not from the camp, from a civilian, a handwritten note, folded once hamburger style, given to Brant at the sawmill by the foreman. It said, "Sunday dinner, my house, 3 p.m. If permitted by the camp." Signed, E. Caldwell. Brant thought it was a mistake. Prisoners don't get dinner invitations. Enemies don't get invited into homes. War doesn't work like that. But the foreman said, "I cleared it." With the camp, with the command, with the guards, with the rules, everything official, everything legal, everything approved. Sunday. 2 guards escorted 6 trustees into town, not in trucks, in a civilian pickup. No sirens, no uniforms, no spectacle, just men riding in a truck bed. The house stood on a quiet street. White porch, wooden steps, flower beds. American flag on the railing. A normal house. The most dangerous thing in the world. Normality. Mrs. Caldwell opened the door, smiled. No fear, no hesitation, no anger, just hospitality, the kind reserved for neighbors. Inside, family photos, a radio, a bookshelf, a clock ticking, a dining table set for 12. The guards sat at the table. The prisoners sat at the table. The family sat at the table.